You're listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. Where about we going, everybody? It's your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders podcast. This week, we're talking to another amazing independent comic book creator. Homie is could talk to us about the Lords of the Cosmos. He could actually even tell us something about some satanic coloring books. Yeah, satanic coloring. I said it, folks. Yeah, sounds wild and crazy, right? But it's actually really fun. Meet the amazing person behind this, the one and only, Jason Lenox. How you doing, kiddo?
Al, I'm doing great. It's great to be on the show. I appreciate you having me as a guest. Thank you.
No, man, thanks for coming on, man. This is awesome, bro. So, excuse me, let's get right into it, bro. Let's do it.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Introduce yourself. Where you from, bro? Where you holler from?
So I'm Jason Lenox, and I hail from almost the center of the state of Pennsylvania. I live about 15 minutes from Penn State University, out in an area that is dominated by farms and horses. So we live really in the country. So my wife and 2 kids and our cat, we live in a little tiny house next to a church, a graveyard, and a bunch of horses in a park.
No wonder your mind is so twisted with the things that you do. Okay, we'll get into that momentarily. Awesome. Talk about your origins, man. What was it as a kid that tickled your fancy when you got into this whole culture? What was it that got you intrigued, if you will?
The comic book that I always think about as kind of my first kiss that got me into comics was I was 7, and it would have been Gru the Wanderer, which was written and drawn by Sergio Aragonés, nice. Who was the guy that did the little margin cartoons in Mad Magazine. And I got Gru the Wanderer #2 at a spinner rack at the Walden Books at Park City Mall in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And it's a great comic book. I still have it. It's in a long box, but that comic really opened my mind. I don't know that Sergio gets a lot of the love and respect that he should get. But he's one of those guys that he's super talented, he's super funny, and he can draw really, really fast. And he is a true comic book cartoonist. But at a young age, seeing Gru really inspired me to want to make things, because it was just a really cool comic.
That's Gru, though, man. I actually collected the run of the Dark Horse Day, Gru versus Conan. I don't know if you picked that up.
I saw that they're just doing a Gru versus Tarzan. Now, that seems to be the move to kind of put Gru in with kind of these more realistic characters. But I'll be honest, I'm a bad Gru lifer because I haven't really caught up with him in the last bunch of years. Gotcha. I have the whole Marvel run, and I have some of the Eclipse run before that, and then he did a bunch of miniseries for Dark Horse, but I did not get the Conan Gru run.
Oh, yeah, that's the one you gotta get, man. That's Conan, my big homie. So I had to pick that bad boy up. So all right, so talk about the journey, man. So you picked that up. You picked up that comic book. Did you have a community of comic book nerds, that a tribe, if you will, growing up?
No, for me, comic book collecting was very just kind of me getting comic books in a vacuum. The earliest community I can remember was I was in art school at Pennsylvania Governor's School for the Arts in summer of 1992 for gifted artists. And I met a really good friend. He lives in New York City now. His name's Keith Crick. And he and I jointly discovered the joy or addiction of collecting anime in 1992. So he was
90s, man. Fucking videotapes and all these movies.
Yeah. So I remember he and I went to a mall in Erie, Pennsylvania, and we went to a comic book store, and we bought Bubblegum Crisis 1 and Dominion Tank Police #1 on VHS. I think they were each like $50 to $60 for
what?
Yeah, like in the clamshell boxes, they were like 30 to 40 minutes each.
Wait, question though, was they the legits or the bootlegs? Be honest.
No, they were legits. They were the legit ones from the companies. Yes. And it was weird because I recently got a Discotheque re-release of Robot Carnival, I believe it was.
Oh, wow.
And there was a documentary about that era of anime retailing to stores. And I remember they talked about the box nomenclature, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember, because there was things on that said like video comics, and I was like, I remember that. So we caught on to the OVA video direct sale trend probably within the first year that they were really trying to do it through comic book stores. So Keith was kind of my first community. And I also remember around that time going to like one-day comic book shows in Lancaster and York, just at like hotels where you just go in.
Yeah.
And there was just comic book dealers. And the only time I ever met a creator was a guy named Joe Monks. And I met Joe at a show in York. I believe it was the Holiday Inn or the Caterpillar plant. And I remember I walked by him, and I would go to these shows with like a list of comic books to buy. And he was like, "Hey, I wrote a comic book. You should buy it." And that was like that seemed to me to be incredibly different because there was actually one of the people that made a comic interacting with me.
Yeah.
And he shook my hand, and he was a real good salesman, and he sold me a copy of Cry for Dawn 2, which he had made with Joe Linsner in the early 90s. And I bought it. Still have that book. I think it's worth a lot of money. I've talked to Joe Monks recently on Facebook. He's a friend. He's a really cool guy. And I relayed that back to him, and he thought it was pretty cool that I remembered all that stuff. But,
Nice.
you know, the comic community growing up and the geek culture was very slim. It was me going to shows. My cousin Paul and I would go to these like one-day shows. And then I had my friend Keith that we collected anime, and we would sometimes get together and go to Philadelphia and buy VHS tapes at like the bootleg stores. And then we would connect our VCRs and like copy tape to tape. So there was kind of a simultaneous collecting anime and comic books. Like to me, they kind of went hand in hand. But you know, again, there wasn't really much community at all. I mean, it was just a very limited activity. At least that was my personal experience.
So what started leading you towards, you know, wanting to create your own stuff? When did that bug hit you?
So I remember making some zine type comics in high school, and I didn't go to college for art. I went to college for business, and I got a degree in marketing from Shippensburg University in Southern Pennsylvania. And while I was in school, I did a lot of just kind of freelance poster stuff. I didn't do anything that was comic related. And then after college, for a few years, I kind of dabbled making some freelance illustrations. And then for a good many years, I stopped. And then around 2009, I was pretty active, kind of pre-social media, on the bulletin board for Heavy Metal Magazine. And I remember a bunch of us were kind of talking on there that we weren't really happy with the direction of the magazine, and we just didn't like it because we were, you know, grouchy fans. And at some point, around 2010, they said, we're going to shut down our bulletin board and migrate off here to Facebook and shut this all down. And I think they wanted to shut it down because their bulletin board was just people just pointing out how the magazine had gone downhill. And there was a couple of us that said maybe we should get together and try to make a short story and submit it. And I said, you know, I really got an itch. I want to start drawing again. So I connected with a fellow that said he was a writer, and then a fellow that said he was a letterer. And I had a very, very simple idea, and it was a 5-page idea. And I pitched it to the guy that said he was a writer. And he came back with this really strange, like 20-page script. And I said, I don't know that this is anything what I talked about. And he wrote me this furious hate mail and basically told me to F off. And then I guess he sent the other fella a pretty nasty note. And then I talked to the other guy and said, why don't we just make this together? So we ended up making a little 5-page short and submitting it to Heavy Metal. And we didn't really hear anything. And then we had fun making that. So we made a 12-page short and sent that into Heavy Metal. And there was a little bit of a back and forth with them where they were like, hey, this is nice, but we might not use it for like 10 years. So that would be like now.
10 years. God damn.
And I was like, okay, I kind of get it. That's the don't call us, we'll call you talk. And so that was around 2011. And I remember Al being kind of bummed out because I was like, well, I guess this is kind of a roadblock because what do I do now? And at the time, I was a little bit aware of Kickstarter, and because I had backed a project on Indiegogo for an independent film that prior year for a friend, and I had obtained a small freelance job through chit chatting with some people that I was getting updates from at the time. So I got a film credit around that time in a film called Zero Charisma for an illustration that I did. The
Zero charisma.
Yeah, which is a film about Dungeons and Dragons players. But
Oh
so
shit, that's
yeah.
horrible.
So
That's the
anyway,
title. Oh, but wait. I just want
yeah.
to just focus on that title for a minute. So it's about D&D players and zero charisma. I mean,
Yeah,
why?
because the dungeon master is hated by everyone, so he has a zero
Okay,
charisma, right?
okay, awesome.
But I had some art in the movie, and then that kind of sprouted into this comic book thought. And
Awesome.
then, so I was kind of sitting there with these two stories. One's 12, one's 5 pages, and I remember thinking, if I'm gonna wait for someone to give me a break, I'll probably never get a break. Why don't I figure out a way to use this crowdfunding stuff and maybe go to the fans and maybe just make my own book? So I actually went to an architectural printer that does blueprints, and I said to the manager, I said, "Could we make a comic book if I gave you files?" And he said, "I'll get back to you." And he said, "I think we could do that. We could do that for you. You're a friend." And then I made a small video and I did a Kickstarter in 2012 for that first project to pay for some expenses. And I tried to raise $1,000, and I think I raised like $1,200. And
Oh,
that was,
nice on your first though. That's
yeah.
beautiful.
And and again,
That must
like
feel good.
well, it did. And crowdfunding now is so it's all around us and it's kind of a given. At that time, I remember, Al, there were people being like, "Why do you have to do this? Like, can't you just ask people for money?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I'll use this platform." And I remember there was a lot of pushback of like, "I don't know why you're like why are you doing this?" And it was like, I have a kick, like, what is Kickstarter? Like there, so like, now everyone's like hawking Kickstarters, and it's very it's everywhere. But at
Yeah.
that time, 10 years ago, it was not. So I did that, and that's kind of where and I started doing comic book shows around that time. I realized there was kind of a different, more thriving community. The first show that I did was the Scranton Comic Con in Scranton, Pennsylvania, in June of 2012. So that's been almost 10 years ago.
Oh wow.
And I started going out and just meeting fans and meeting people, and building a presence, and just working on meeting people, and building a
Were you
fan
ready
base.
for that? Were you ready for that as a new creator to face the cons and how people are?
The first show I went to was really cool. I showed up with a stack of books and a framed piece of art and some business cards and a sheet, and that was it. And I had a sign. I had a sign behind me, and that was it. And I sold, I don't know, $100 worth of stuff, and people
Nice.
were really nice to me. And so it was a 1 day 10 to 5 show, small crowd, friendly crowd. My neighbor was a guy named Chris Ring. He's a lifer artist, and he was really cool and gave me he gave me a couple tips to do better. Get some prints, maybe do a little fan art, do some other things, build on what you got. And I kind of walked into that show just kind of saying, "Here I am, I'll give it a shot." And I've done a ton of shows since then, and you get a little bit better. So I've actually looked at pictures from me at these shows from all those years ago, and I've looked at even like my setup, and it grows like a weed, man, where like the amount of material, your presence, like your experience, your ability to talk to a crowd, it grows. But, I think back to that first Kickstarter, that first show. And at the time, that was the best I could do, so I'm proud of it. But obviously, I feel that I've gotten a lot bigger and better, and smarter, because you're always just trying to get better. Because people will say, like, "What's your favorite art that you've done?" And I always tell them the same thing. It's whatever I've done the most recently, because I'm always just trying to get better. So, ideally, the newest thing you're doing should be the best, because you've got everything before that you've learned off of. So, yeah, that's kind of my origin story, to the point now where, like, my last Kickstarter that wrapped in February, I had 263 backers and raised like $8,300. It was my 11th Kickstarter for my 11th book. So, the Lords of the Cosmos 4. So, to think about where I was to where I'm at, it's there was, things that I wish I'd have done different, but I think everyone's got to make mistakes, or kind of just, scrap up and learn. You learn by doing your best and maybe failing, or, not doing the best you could do, but you just figure it out as you go, and you try to listen and get better.
Is that 11 successful Kickstarters?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow, kiddo, congrats, bro. That's fucking amazing. God bless,
Thanks.
bro.
Well,
That's really good.
Thanks. Yeah, and hopefully we get 12 when this coloring book goes live on October 5th. Hopefully we get a 12th, right? Lucky
Yeah.
12.
Well, it's gonna happen, bro. What you mean if? It's when,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Well, I hope so. I'll be honest, I hope so because it's got a ton of people following it. So I think it's going to go really well, to be honest with you.
So let's just show some stuff because not just about that, because this was the last one prior
Yep.
to the Satanic, right?
Yep. This is Lords of the Cosmos
So
4.
introduce people into Lord of the Cosmos.
So I grew up as a kid watching the old Filmation cartoons like Tarzan, Flash Gordon, Black Star. I love Silverhawks, Thundercats, He-Man. So I grew up with all those things, and I have a lot of affection for them. They're corny, they're cheesy, but I love them for all that stuff. So Lords of the Cosmos was myself and my two creative partners on this, Dennis and Jason. The three of us, have built Lords of the Cosmos to be our take on what we wanted to see in an 80s property. So it is magic, it's technology, it's fantasy, it's science fiction on a planet with supercharged villains and supercharged villains having crazy adventures as they fight each other over multiple time periods and wars with things that are impossible but really cool. So I mean, that image there, that is a scene from issue 4 where the heroes are attacking a beach. So it's kind of like Saving Private Ryan, but with like a battleship on a turtle and werewolves and robots, and they're landing troops out of gigantic mechanized crocodiles.
Bro,
Yeah.
your
So
imagination is insane, bro.
so to me, that that's what Lords of the Cosmos is all about. So this is a little bit of drama here. This is from issue 4 where the higher level villains are having a fallout, and it's kind of like a gangster hit where the undead unicorn has failed in the prior issues, and in the prior issue he's been shot by one of the heroes, and he shows up for help, and a character that is a gigantic acid filled fish tank has a score to settle with him and asks to have him tortured to death, and the main villain is like, take him and take your vengeance out on him. So there's kind of a little element of Starscream in the character that's the unicorn, and we're showing him being dragged off while the two main villains, who are Obsidian, Umex, the two at the bottom there, they're kind of the evil power couple that run the villains. They're basically back to worrying about their day-to-day. And Psycorn, who's our undead unicorn, he'll have something to say in the next issue as well. And one of the big things in this issue is we learn the origin of the large fish tank man and why he hates Psycorn. So
gotcha.
There's a lot, man. And again, if you love that 80s stuff, you're like, yeah, this really seems like a lot of those 80s dynamics with Megatron and Starscream, and that was always the intent, to give that flavor.
Everybody's favorite heel. Come on now, Starscream is everybody's favorite bitch ass, if you will.
Yeah, he's great. So this page is two of the heroes. One is a cybernetic wizard called Tiedmus, and then there's a talking cat called Phoenix. And this is their origin story called Last of Their Kind, where there's only one of each of them left in the world, and the cat saves the wizard. And then we learn their origin where they join up with the heroes. So we kind of bounce back and forth a lot in these books where there's a main storyline, but we keep jumping around and showing different spotlights, like who are these characters and where did they come from? And it's kind of fun exploring all their different origin stories and how it builds on our bigger world building project with it.
And so is the comic black and white?
Yeah, comics black and white.
I love it.
We did that really for budget because it just would have cost way more money to color it. But I'm a big fan of 2000 AD and Judge Dredd, and I like a lot the Savage Sword of Conan. I think black and white, I think it's beautiful in its own way.
Me too.
So to me, some people have said, "Why aren't you coloring it?" And I'm like, "Well, it's a budget thing, but I think black and white's gorgeous." So
you're talking my language, kiddo.
Yeah. So to me, it's just a style choice. So this page is the main hero has a magic sword that is part of their logo, and the sword is alive. And in this issue, we learn the sword's very strange origin story and how the sword wants people to die and has caused a lot of conflict in this world, because it's influenced the main hero to keep killing people and disfiguring people in all these conflicts in the past. And the sword gives you its origin story in this book, and the sword talks.
Too funny.
So this is the sword story. So this is a scene from that beach attack where the alternate cover where Lady Vi and Mordanix are two of the main villains, and This is them getting attacked on the beach because their job is to defend part of the beach from the heroes landing all their troops and machines and stuff on the beach. There's a lot going on here. Lady Vi is a backer from the prior issue, so she's in the book. She's the love interest of the main villain. The guy on the little surfboard, he's another backer named Mark Krischer, and he paid to be in the book as a character named Turbo, where his deal is he kind of smashes into guys on his powered surfboard. And there's a lot going on here. So in issue 1, we introduced the undead unicorn and his rival, a cybernetic reindeer, and they see each other, and that causes mayhem. So there's just a lot going on.
I love it though. That name fucks me up. The undead unicorn. It just sounds fucking crazy.
The guy, if you go back real quick, I'll roll you back one here. So on that last image at the bottom, there was a fellow that backed us in the first issue. That's his character, the bottom, getting punched in the chest with a mace. So that's my bro Eric Suarez. That's his character, Zakoteco, and that's his first appearance in the book. And,
hey, Zakoteco, first and last apparently, because you look like you're dying.
Yeah, well, he's not dead. He's going to have his own story in a future issue. We're working on that. But there's just a lot going on. But anyway, let's move it ahead, Al. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, this is what's going on, bro. Some crazy shit that is probably offending people because they don't understand the fun behind it. But talk about it.
So, Satanic Coloring Book, I did a bunch of freelance and spec pieces starting in around 2015, 2016 that had satanic themes in them. And a good friend of mine named Julia Geist, in and around that time, had said to me, this would be great if you made a coloring book. And I said, nah, I don't want to do a coloring book. I don't want to do a coloring book. So I was like, no. And I kept making more and more of this material. And the more that I made, the more people kind of were attracted to it. And I hit a critical mass at a certain point where it actually seemed like a pretty good idea. And then I got connected with a printing company in State College where I live that actually makes coloring books. And I said, is this possible to do this? And they said, yeah, this is more than possible. If you put this together, we can make it. And then that was between Lords of the Cosmos 2 and 3. And I said at the time, about 2 years ago, I said, okay, when I wrap up Lords of the Cosmos 4, full speed ahead, we're going to make this thing happen. So I had a meeting with a graphic designer and colorist, Danny Zemba, that I work with quite a bit, and the printing company. And we had a meeting in March, and we kind of, had a general planning meeting to say, this is what we can do. This is what we need to do. And then I made a plan, and I started moving ahead with Danny to start creating what we needed for the book. And the goal was to launch the Kickstarter in October of 2021, which is this month. And hey, it's this month, and it's all worked out. So it was taking a lot of material that was kind of not ever meant to be together, but making it go together. So you're a geeky guy. So this is what I'll explain it to you as in more common terms. I love Robotech. I think Carl Masek's a cool guy, but I always laugh about Robotech because it was 3 shows that he went and bought that were short, and they put them all together and said, this is Robotech. And we as American kid audiences said, it makes sense to us. But if you knew what that was, it was Macross, it was Southern Cross, and it was Genesis Climber Most PETA. They were 3 separate shows that had nothing to do with each other. The Satanic Coloring Book is kind of like that, but my work, where it's like, here's a whole bunch of stuff that's all satanic themed. It was never made to all go together in a book, but we thought about it and realized how we could make it work. We broke it into 2 books. One is the more, it's a little more adults only ritual material, and the other book is called Animals. So yeah, these are some of the covers from Rituals. So these are, stained glass heraldry. I try to take the stuff really seriously.
That's a dope one though, with the stained glass though.
Yeah, people I've gotten to be pretty well known for my stained glass. The weird story behind that is on the second or third satanic piece, I just drew a goat with a pentagram, and Danny, who had colored the piece, made the pentagram into some stained glass. And I said, why did you do that? She said, I don't know. I thought it looked cool. It was just a little circle. And then I thought, that's a pretty neat idea. And then I kind of took that just a little bit of inspiration and started making these larger stained glass pieces and flags and heraldry, and trying to build out the satanic aesthetic, but do it like it was a kingdom, and it needed to have things that you would have if you were a kingdom, which would be symbols, flags, heraldry, stained glass, to try to do it in a very serious manner of kind of classic artistic design, but with a different theme. I mean, there's tons of, stained glass at churches, but there's really very little that's satanic, almost none.
Yeah, man. I'll have the pictures to number 2. So talk about the second image.
So the second book is just called Animals. And I had done a lot of just like little pieces of cats and dogs and things like that with just a satanic symbol with it, and people love it. They love, they love animals. They like a little bit of Satan, so it's kind of like peanut butter and cookies, dude. They go great together.
Yes,
And I
they
realized,
do.
yeah, and I kind of realized that it would be nice to have a book that doesn't have anything that you like. Rituals has some things you wouldn't want to show kids, so that's marketed as
Okay.
adult only 18 plus. But by taking all the animal stuff, we made a book this is all ages. So if you showed it to a little kid, I mean, like if you're upset about a pentagram, you are, but there is no violence. There's no, it's just animals. So the
Yeah.
idea was to make a book that everyone could look at. And then we have one that's only for, the adults. So it ended up being 2 books, which I like that because that way there's something for everyone.
Gotcha, man. 'Cause I know when I told my daughter about this, I know she ate it up. She said, "Oh, when?"
Well, right. And here's the thing. You could get her the animals book and know that, it's animals with satanic symbols. So there's the sigil Lucifer pentagram and things like that, but there's like a cow and there's a rabbit and cats and dogs. There's a buffalo. Um, there's some birds. So it's things that, outside of if the, religious symbolism upsets you, but I wouldn't want to put something that has, violence or nudity that's marketed for everybody because that's not fair. I think people should be able to have things that
Good
are
for
adult
you.
content, but I don't want to. But I don't ever want those things to be marketed to kids because I have kids and I wouldn't want someone to do that with them. So to me, it's cool to have both. Like we put our adult stuff in one book, we put the all ages stuff in another book, and then there's something for everyone.
Well, there we go. So, folks, if you want to check out his stuff, you gotta go to Jason Lennox, right?
Yep.
Right there. Then the last project. I mean, can we still bid on it, or what's popping there? What?
So if you go to the page, there is a link to go buy the book because the book is now on Etsy and I'll autograph it for you. So if you go to the Kickstarter page at the top, there's a button that says order a copy. You can go there now and just order a copy. So it's kind of like an
Oh, word.
Amazon
Now,
deal.
good
Yep.
you. Nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice. And is the Kickstarter project for the Satanic Coloring book still alive?
It'll start on the 5th.
It start. Yeah, folks, you hear this? It starts on the 5th.
Right. So you got
Don't mess
time.
around, folks.
It'll go live on the 5th. There's going to be some early bird specials. I think they're going to go quick. There is a ton of people following the project, and I think it's going to get a lot of backers. So get in there early, get in there and grab stuff. There's a lot of really fun rewards. There's enamel pins. There's satanic colored pencils. There's 13 covers, 7 on one book, 6 on the other.
And is
There
the 13 covers on purpose with the number 13?
No, it just worked out that way. We
Yeah,
we had a bunch of stuff for covers, and a lot of them didn't work out. And we said these are the ones we liked the best, and just kept them. Danny and I just picked the ones
awesome.
we thought were cool. And you can actually get me to color a page. You can actually get my wife to color a page. You can actually get my kids to color a page, and
Oh,
then
nice.
and then a bunch of the artists on the book. It's like color a page where you pay a fee, and then we'll ship a book to them, and they'll color a page. I work with some models on some of the art in the books. Some of the models have a fee to color a page
Cool.
and things like that. So there's a lot of fun stuff. This is the first time I really got really involved with add-on menus. So there's some basic tiers, and then you can go to like the add-on menu and I want to buy a t-shirt and a pencil pack and 2 pins, and you can kind of build your own rewards because I didn't want to have like, well, here's a tier with 2 books, 3 pins, and a pencil, and here's 3 books. It's figured, hey, look, here's a book, here's 2 books. Go take those 2 tiers and go get whatever you want. Build your own, t-shirt, pencils, pins, stickers. You do what you want.
Awesome. Awesome. That's how he do, yo. Jason, you feel me? Look, we got jasonlennox.com. The project's right there. You could visit that now and be advised when this bad boy is live.
Mm-hmm.
So you could go ahead and start putting that paper in and support this awesome and fun project. Don't get yourself so serious, folks. Get out of here with this. It's really fun what he's doing. I'm seeing what he's doing with it. I'm enjoying the shit out of it. You twist it, and I love it. So, what would be the dream with this, bro?
With the coloring book,
Yeah. Or any ideas overall that you have with it? Is there anything greater that could come out of it that you kind of been,
hmm.
in that brain of yours stewing on?
So with the coloring book, It's funny. The coloring book was always just made for fun. I never really had a big grand plan for it. I'd say I had bigger ideas with Lords of the Cosmos. Like if I could have anything come true with that project, it would be to make it into an animated anthology, kind of like the Animatrix. I always thought that was a cool experiment with animation. I think it would work well as something like that. That would be a big dream for that. For a coloring book, I don't know. I think the coloring book is kind of I'd like it to see it be really successful. It would be cool to see if it could get like, a ton of backers and a ton of fun for people.
I see Metalhead's backing the shit out of this right now.
Well, I think Metalhead should back it for real, because it's definitely up there. So actually, true story, when the campaign launches, when you go check out the video, I have a client, they're a heavy metal band from the West Coast called Dead Animal Assembly Plant, and the band was kind enough as my client to let me use a little bit of their music in the trailer. So we have a little bit of heavy metal in the trailer. So it's pretty cool. We have some voiceover,
nice,
heavy metal music, some animation. So I'm really excited for people to see the video, because we've really kept it under wraps. But the video is 1 minute and 40 seconds long, with blood and crayons and people talking and art and animals moving around and creatures and monsters. And it's pretty sweet. Fire.
Excellent. Right up my alley, man. You're talking to a fan already. I love it. So, folks, there you go. Check out Jason Lenox. Please check out the project. Sign up now, so that way you could get informed of when that beautiful bad boy comes out. All right? So there you go. Jason, anything I'm missing here? Where else could they follow you?
The easiest place to follow me is probably Twitter and Instagram. I'm just at Lenox Artist, Lenox Artist. And, I'm on Facebook as Jason Lenox Illustrator, and I'm on Etsy at Lenox Art Emporium. But I put the Kickstarter stuff right on top of my website. So if you want to just go find it, just go to jasonlenox.com. Click on it. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. It's right there. Boom.
And not even worry about it. It'll also be in the show notes, so you guys can click away and go ahead and support this wonderful project by this amazing creator that's been just doing awesome stuff. So, Jason, thank you for taking some time out today to chat with us. Check out a bit about the project. You rule, you rock. Thank you for everything you do. And I know that this is going to be a big success. Don't you worry. Al. And with that, folks, you know what to do. Outro says it all. I'm Al Mega with the amazing Jason Lenox. Later. Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.shop and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.